Greetings all, it is I, Saint. A real quick housekeeping note, I wanted to thank everyone for their responses to my Brexit video, especially the constructive criticism I'm working to include and incorporate. Amongst the long list of YouTubers that I listen to on a regular basis regarding feminism, there's an added push for them to ignore or criticize modern-day feminists for citing the dictionary definition. Initially, I was on board for that, but then I started thinking about it. Instead of criticizing feminists for looking to and citing an agreed-upon definition in the dictionary of a word, we should be holding them to it. Words have meanings, and when engaging in discussions, we often have to define our terms, as Socrates argued. The most universal way to do this is using a definition provided in the dictionary. And I want to briefly argue in this video that using the dictionary definition and holding feminists to that definition is the very best way to end the argument. To prove this, let's get logical. Any logical citations will come from my logic text, The Power of Logic, 3rd edition, by C. Stephen Lehman, which I have linked below. The law of non-contradiction in English is basically put, if A is A, then A cannot be non-A. This doesn't mean that B at any point cannot equal A. This statement is only about A. A will always be A, and A cannot be anything less or more than A. It has no bearing on any of the other letters. Based on this, if the definition of feminism is, as they always state, feminism, noun, the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality to men, then they restrict themselves to that definition. Anything they describe relating to but not included in that is not feminism. And since feminism doesn't have any sort of orthodoxy, you can't get away with adding things non-related to what it talks about. Just to show this train of thought can be used across the board, I'd like to first show you 2 additional definitions. Then I'll take a look back at feminism. Christianity, defined by Merriam-Webster, is the religion that is based off the teachings of Jesus Christ. In the full definition, it is a religion derived from Jesus Christ based on the Bible as sacred scripture, and professed by Eastern, Roman, Catholic, and Protestant bodies. 2, conformity to the Christian religion, and 3, the practice of Christianity. If we look at that, we can see there's a lot of wiggle room, and there's room for debate. Included in it is conformity to the Christian religion, etc. It's not a simple open and closed definition. I also pulled an ism out, which is conservatism in this case. And here we see a couple of different definitions. One of them includes aspects of conservative orthodoxy. So if we look at the full definition, we're looking at the principled and policies of the Conservative Party, a disposition of politics to preserve what is established. B is the big one where it actually gets into what is conservative orthodoxy, talking about lowering taxes, limited government, etc. The dictionary definition of either can be used to help determine quickly if someone is a Christian or a conservative. If someone claims to be a conservative but is advocating a shared government responsibility of healthcare coverage, we can reasonably say that you're not a conservative. If someone claims to be a Christian and espouses belief in things that aren't part of the Christian religion, belief in a pantheon, or has decided to sin on a regular basis without remorse, we can say they're a heretical Christian. This works logically because B can be A plus blank, but A can only be A. Once you add something to it or take something away from it, it ceases to be A. So if we go to the dictionary definition of feminism by Merriam-Webster, you'll see that the definition actually matches what the so-called feminists often say. They typically argue that it's a belief that men and women are equal. So, and the Merriam-Webster goes to the belief, not just advocacy, which is why I will use this definition as opposed to Google's. The simple definition states that feminism is the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities. This is something that has an objective goal that we can reach. By using the definition of feminism according to Merriam-Webster, we can get a clear goal that we can use against the so-called feminists. Secondly, we see that it, quote, is an organized activity on behalf of women's rights and interests, end quote. I'll give you a minute to take that in. And then rhetorically ask, when so-called feminists argue that feminism is for men, by using the dictionary definition, can we then say, so you may believe that feminism is for men, but that's not what the definition says. So obviously, you're not a feminist. When feminists argue for intersectionality as a core tenet of feminism, but then cite the dictionary definition, they're contradicting themselves. When they take 20 minutes to say what feminism means after stating the dictionary definition, they've stopped describing feminism and started describing something else. The dictionary definition of feminism is the closest thing we have to feminist orthodoxy. And so instead of criticizing them for using it, we need to use it when they cite it as evidence of their contradictory beliefs. The same works in another situation. If we disregard the definition of feminism when the so-called feminists say it, we then can't point to the dictionary definition of sexism and racism when SJWs try to add things to it. We have to be consistent. And we can be, ultimately, because we're right. Logic, reason, and evidence is on our side. We just have to stay true to it. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Do you see any issues with my thought process? I know this puts me partially in the same camp of Onision, in that I believe definitions are important, but I think we can consistently and across the board use it to prove Onision wrong by holding him and others like him to it. Thanks for watching.